it was just seeing it in the little picture, the little tiny picture. I mean, you can't see the details there. Little tiny, everything the way it was. A little tiny picture of Ted, who he lost, and it was devastating. And he was, he was. Look, he was in a war. He was having a hard time because he couldn't beat Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee won like 13 battles in a row, and he was getting like a phobia, like a fighter. Not about the fight stuff, but like, I went to a UFC fight, and it was a champion who was 14-1 about a year ago. You would know the names. 14-1, and the only guy he lost to was this one guy, but the guy that he was fighting was like almost just an average fighter, lost numerous times, but he beat this one guy. So I said, okay.
I really don't know who you're talking about.
I will figure it out.
Okay.
But about a year ago, but the point is that he lost, he wasn't nearly the fighter, but the one who was not nearly the fighter had beaten, he's the only guy that beat the champ, like 5 years before. And I said, I'll take the guy that won the other fight. And that's what happened. He beat him a second time.
Sometimes psychological advantage.
Yeah, well, it's this crazy thing. Lincoln had I don't know, I've never read this. I heard it from people in the White House who really understand what was going on with the whole life of the White House. But Lincoln had the yips about it, in a way, as the golfers would say. He had a phobia about Robert E. Lee. He said, I can't beat Robert, because Robert E. Lee won many battles in a row. He was just beating the hell out of him. They tried to get Robert E. Lee to be on the North, but he said, no, I have to be with my state. The state was his whole thing, and he went to the South. And he was, I've had generals tell me, we have some great generals, the real generals, not the ones you see on television, the ones that beat ISIS with me. We defeated ISIS in record time. It was supposed to take years, and we did it in a matter of weeks. These are great generals. These are tough guys. These are not woke guys. But their favorite general, in terms of genius, was Robert E. Lee.
In terms of strategy, you mean?
Strategically. He took a war that should have been over in a few days, and it was, years of hell, a vicious war. And so here I am standing there, and again, I had never really done this before. I ran a number of months before I won. I probably, I guess if you figured max it out, it would be a year, something like that. So I had never run for office. And I did well. I mean, I went into debates. We had 18 people, including me, and then slowly but surely they started to disappear. We had debates, good debates.
Everyone's aware of all this stuff, but what I want to get to is, what was the experience once you got inside?
It was just,
what did you think it was going to be like in terms of, your ability to govern?
Yeah.
This is your first experience governing anything. You've never been a governor, you've never been a mayor.
Private stuff.
Business.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, you're inside the White House.
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this it was really a hallowed place to me. It was surreal. It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience. And then, with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes, your place where you stay. And I was doing a lot of, I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. Nobody has ever been treated that way. And you see that. You see where the Washington Post very early on, they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. It literally started from the beginning. So I had survival and run the nation. I had a combination. Most people don't have the survival. They get in.
What did you expect, though, in terms of, once you got inside, you had to appoint all these people?
Yeah.
How many appointments did you have to make?
Well, you have actually 10,000 appointments. Now, they're different. You have big ones, and then they appoint 100 people and 200 people. But the president really is involved with approximately 10,000 appointments. So you'll appoint a Secretary of State, and he or she will appoint a lot of people. So it's a lot. But in terms of major ones, you probably have 100, but they're big ones. Treasury, state, military.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience. You have to understand, Jim.
So
I was there 17 times in Washington. and I never stayed over. According to the press, which I think is probably right, over the years, I was only there 17 times. I never stayed over. So now I'm sitting there, I'm saying, this place is gorgeous, but you know, I don't know anybody. It's like you know, you go to certain areas, and other areas, they may be great. Washington was great. Washington's not so great right now. We gotta fix it. We're gonna make it better. It's a very dangerous place, very badly maintained place. We're gonna make it great. We're gonna make it better. We're gonna bring it back.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a Washington guy. I was a New York guy. I was a New York builder, and I built buildings in New York, and I knew that whole world, but I didn't know the Washington world too well. And all of a sudden, you're supposed to be appointing top people. So,
what did you think it was going to be like? Versus, like, did you have any ideas of what it was going to be like, and what was different?
well, I was always involved in politics, but usually from the standpoint of a donor. I was a donor. You know, I was a big donor. I gave money to politicians. I enjoyed
Mostly Democrats, right?
Both, really, pretty much both. I had actually pictures of Ronald Reagan and me when I was very
But you
young.
were a Democrat until, like, what year?
I was a Democrat. I could get you the exact, but the early 90s, I switched over eventually. Actually, they had a reform party. I was thinking about doing that for a little while, but then fortunately I didn't because it's very hard. You know, it's a two-party system. And anytime you hear third party, I know you like RFK Jr., and so do I. He's a fantastic guy.
I do, but I thought that
whole
being
thing
an
is very
independent was nonsense.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work because even if you do great, you're not going to get votes. In other words,
Right.
you need now to say, okay, now I'll get half of Congress. They're never going to vote for you. So even if you got there, which is very hard, and I feel about Bobby, and I feel the same way, and he's now with us. But it doesn't. It's pure and simple. It's a two-party system.
Right.
And somebody, I won't mention his name, but somebody spent $250 million trying to get the nomination as a Reform Party candidate or whatever, and they got just nowhere. You get eaten. You just get eaten. The system eats you alive.
Right.
So it was really somebody that not only was new to Washington, but was new to politics. So in the office of the presidency, over the years, all those presidents, you've had 92% were politicians and 8% were generals. General Eisenhower, General Washington, right? General George Washington, you had generals. So it's 8% no admirals, 8% generals, and 92% politicians. You know, they're politicians and they go on. So they never had a business guy, or they never had a guy that wasn't elected to an office. They were all like Ronald Reagan he was a movie actor, and then but he became the governor of California for, I think, 2 terms, and then he ran. So you never had a thing like this. But you know, in terms of me, sometimes I use it as an excuse, and I don't like having excuses actually, but I'd use it as an excuse. I had to rely on people that I respected or liked, but that I didn't know that well because I didn't know them that well. Some of those people I campaigned against, because, you know, when you have 18 people, we had mostly politicians running in the election, you know, running in the primaries. And I got knocked out one by one, but I got to like some of them I didn't like at all. I don't like them now. And I rely on them, and I'd rely on other people. So all of a sudden, people would come in, I'd like to recommend so-and-so to be Secretary of State, and I'd have 3, 4 people recommend. One thing I can tell you is everybody wants the position. Sometimes I hear a lot of people don't want to work with Trump because Trump is tough to work with. Everybody wants to.
Why wasn't it reloaded? I didn't even shoot.
They die for it. Of course. Now, they don't want to be known. I mean, there's a particular guy in New York, primarily. Very big, very successful, very strong, very political, although he's not a politician. He'd give anything to be Secretary of State, but if they ask him, no, I don't think I would do it. But in the meantime, begging for it, okay, begging.
I believe it.
Everybody wants it.
But my
By the way, no matter what you do, but it's very dangerous to pick somebody outside of a politician because the politician's been basically vetted for years.
Right.
You pick a business guy, and they've never been vetted at all, and they're, you know, the head of a big company or something, but they've never been vetted. You know nothing about his personal life. You know nothing about where he's been. When you put him in, it's a little bit dangerous because all of a sudden they get checked up, and you hear things that you say, wow, this is not going to work out too well. So it's very dangerous picking people that are outside of politics is somewhat dangerous.
So you're kind of stuck in a position where you have to pick established people. And then the problem with established people is established people are already indoctrinated.
Are you serious?
And they're stiffs in many cases. They're survivors. I find that, you know,
what do you mean by stiffs? When you say stiffs?
a stiff, they have nothing. Or they're smart and survive. One little thing. So there was a congressman years before I ran, and I was very close to him. And I needed a license on something, and he was very important in getting the license. But it was a little bit controversial, the license, this particular thing that was being licensed. But I was close to this guy and helped him and everything else. And I went to him, I said, I'd like to have your help. And he said, let me take a look at it. I said, ooh, that's not too good. But I really hope you can help. Anyway, he tapped me along for a long period of time, but ultimately didn't do it. And I said, you are a stiff. You could have done this thing so. But it was controversial. He was in Congress for many years, like 28 years. And you know, there's a reason when somebody's there for 28 years, you gotta be sort of smart.
Right.
You know, you're
a survivor.
And I realized
Bro, really?
And so they never do
Five
anything
guys right there.
controversial. They never take
All
any
on B.
chances or speak their opinion that's outside of it. Yeah.
And yet, I don't disrespect him for it.
So
I actually respected the guy more in a way, in a certain way. I said, you know what, he's been there for 28 years, and he made it through. A lot of people don't make it through.
it's a good way for non-exceptional people to survive.
Well, it is, yeah. It certainly is.
So you're in there. You have 10,000 appointments you have to make. Like, so you're getting advice from people. And at one point in time, did you have a moment in time where you realized, like, these are bad choices? Like, some of these people I shouldn't have had in there.
Oh, yeah. I think, so the one question that you'll ask me, that I think you'll ask me, that people seem to ask it, I always come up with the same answer.
What was that?
The one mistake, because I had a lot of success. Great economy, great everything. Everything was great. The military, we rebuilt it, biggest tax cuts in history. All of a sudden, we had a great president. 3 Supreme Court justices. Most people get none. You know, you pick them young. This way they're there for 30 years, right? So, you know, even if a president is there for 8 years, oftentimes they never have a chance. I had 3. It was sort of the luck of the draw. But I will say that it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, you know, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
Neocons?
yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
People that were just
people
bad.
that weren't.
People got bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're reading about it a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport. The bullies are exposed very quickly. Yeah, but you know, he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. You know, John. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton. He's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. You know, he's just a natural poker sense, right? You know, good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called him. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, he's a bad guy. He's just, it always works out bad with that guy. And I said, oh, man, I wish he'd told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. You know, he's here. And he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job.
More than an angle and shit.
And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us. He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people. And it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe.
They said a lot of wild shit, and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild shit, made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult to know. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They say everything. It's very rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it. One of the beautiful things about you is that you freeball. Like, you get out and you do these huge events, and you're just talking, and you're making. We've highlighted you on the show many times where you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand-up. It's funny stuff. But it's like you and you're making fun of Elon one time. You're doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, you'd be in jail. Like, that's great timing. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like, no one had done that. And I think...
You know, it's funny, you need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very dangerous business. First of all, it's a very tough business.
It's the most dangerous business.
Well, for a job?
Yes. I mean, other than going to war and being a firefighter or being a cop, it's the most dangerous business.
What the fuck?
Is the most dangerous.
Especially you. I mean, you haven't even got to the election. There's been 2 assassination attempts.
Bruh, get the fuck out of here, son.
Brushed those out of the news like it was nothing.
They'd rather not talk about them.
Imagine if there was assassination attempts on Biden, how hard people would be attacking the right. How they would be trying to get guns taken away from people. They would try to ramp up gun laws. They would try to figure out some way to blame you. If there was attacks on... If Biden got shot in a year, we would have never heard the end of it.
But I think he's in good shape because it's only consequential presidents. If you take a look at what's happened, look, I'm for having countries pay us billions and trillions even dollars. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. Nobody took in 10 cents, not one other president. I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular.
I heard this fucking bitch.
And when you do that, you know, you're more, look at Iran. We would have never had the attack on Israel at all. Iran was broke. I told China, if you buy, you can't do business with the United States under any circumstances. We're going to go cold trust with China. Some people think that would have been a good idea anyway. But if you buy any oil, 1 barrel of oil from them, you're not doing business. I said that to many countries. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for Hamas. They had no... But I make myself, you know, I mean, I understand what I'm doing. You make yourself a target. And it's a very dangerous business. But if you just look at statistically, so I said, I sort of think, I don't know if it's right, but 1/10 of 1% for a race car driver. That's a very dangerous business, right? Yeah. 1/10 of 1% for a bull rider. I tell you, to me, I was talking down. These guys that ride the bulls in the US, these guys, you see these big monster bulls, and you see it in slow motion where the foot is like, you know, an inch away from the head, and it hits the guy's gun, but they die. You know, they die.
So 1/10 of 1% die, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, 1/10 of 1% die.
Right.
And they certainly get hurt bad. You know, they get walk after a certain period of time. But with the president, if you look at
the amount of assassination attempts.
And attempts, too.
Yeah.
And attempts. No, it's a very dangerous position. I never thought of that, by the way, when I did it. You don't tend to...
Did you just assume because people loved you on The Apprentice, they were going to love you as a president?
You know, it's
Well,
very...
it probably would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like, Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E. Lee. Oh, Donald Trump wishes the South won. Yeah. They love to take things out of context and distort things.
But they don't even have to take them out. They make them up entirely. Okay,
They do that too.
But you know, I was very popular, and all those people loved me. I mean, there's some of these women. They're so stupid, and joy. Every time she'd see me, I'd be in the theater or something, and she'd, you have to be on the show again. Come on, let's go.
She loved you. That episode where people should watch that episode just to see what we're talking about. Like I said, we don't want to get a copyright strike, so we're not going to put it up. But if you watch the episode, it's bananas. It's like an alternative universe. And it's only...
But Whoopi
ago.
Whoopi loved
Loved you. Gives you a hug and a kiss.
And how about that other one, the new one on there? My administration. She writes me a letter, you're the greatest president. She is. You know, she was an assistant press secretary, I hardly know her. But she leaves and she writes me this gorgeous letter. What's her name? She was, I don't even know, you know, anyway, she was in the administration. She's on now currently. Sits in the far right-hand side, whatever the hell it is. And she writes a letter, the most beautiful letter. She's quoted in the paper. He's a consequential, he was the greatest president, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden she goes to the view, she started hitting hell at me. Because they won't hire her unless... I've had many people go on CNN and they call and said, I don't know what to do. Well, they want to pay me a lot, but I have to be negative with you. I said, be negative, it's okay. There are guys on, like, CNN, they won't hire them. Sean Duffy, congressman, he tried to get a good job at CNN.
Oh my God.
So they kept him, but they won't. I mean, I respect what he did. He could have gone, you know, negative. I tell people, go negative. You know, let my friends make money. Well, it's so crooked. The press is so crooked.
It's crooked, but it's also, they're diminishing themselves. They're killing all their credibility. And it's
How'd they get all the flags that quick?
to new media. It's opened up the credibility to independent media.
I've never seen that. And I've seen the worst. I've been a part of it. I've seen the worst. Kamala goes on 60 Minutes, gave an answer that a child and 60
Give you some shit, boy.
took the answer out. They took the whole, and they put another answer in.
They edited it.
Which didn't make sense either, but it was better. They took it wasn't editing, it was fraud. This was not editing. You know, editing is where I'll give an answer and they'll take a couple of words and change around, or they might even take a sentence or two off, which is very bad. But it's sort of bad. You know, I'd give an answer which was a very good answer. I always talk about, I like to use the weave. You know, I like to use
You like to weave things in?
Yeah, but when you do the weaves, and you have to be very smart to do weaves. When you do the weave, look at this one thing we're talking about, little pieces of here, but it always ends up. No, it comes back home. Yeah, for the right people, for the wrong people, it doesn't come back home, but they end up in the wilderness, right? But and you know what? They may take a little piece of it out or something, and they use the term, yes, we want to save time. It's out, but I've never heard. I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcasting. What happened to CBS? So you have CBS 60
They spawn trap in the back seat now.
It's not an entertainment program. It's under their news. It's the head of their news thing. She gives an answer that shows that she's essentially incompetent. And they took the answer. Could you imagine them doing that?
We can show it if you want people to see it. Can we show it? No? We get in trouble? We'll get copyright strike? Okay.
I'll let them play.
But it's drastic. But what was interesting was the other full version was available initially. It was like a preview.
Somebody made a big mistake.
Somebody put that preview out there.
Somebody put the preview out.
Exactly.
And then the bosses did this or that. And then all of a sudden they said, we got a problem.
Exactly. And then
They got caught by mistake.
How the fuck you lose Alpha?
Don't you think that's a bit, to me, I don't think it's just election interference and fraud. And it's 60 Minutes, it's their news division, so
it's a big deal.
They give those licenses, Joe, for free. They should pay a fortune. They're worth a fortune. They give them out for free because they're using the public. Cable, you don't have that. Cable's different. But, you know, it's a different deal. But with the networks, they give those licenses. They're worth billions of dollars. They give them out free, but you have to be honest and all. That was bad. I think that David Muir and that woman that was assigned, I've never heard of her, they kept interrupting me. It was like, I said, how many people am I debating here? I got this one and I got you two. But he went after me 11 different times. You know, it's interesting. I always thought he was a nice guy, but he's just like the rest of them. You know?
No way he got you.
Well, that's his job,
Fucking bitch.
unfortunately. And I'm sure the problem was they fact-checked you and they didn't fact-check her. And one of the most egregious examples of that was when she said that there are no troops right now deployed in war zones. There's a very famous viral video that went online of troops in a war zone saying, well, what the fuck are we then? Because there's thousands of them. Dan Crenshaw, the congressman, posted on his Instagram all of the various examples of troops that are deployed, thousands and thousands of troops that are currently deployed.
Stupidly deployed.
But the point is, if this is going to be an actual real debate and not a propaganda exercise, if it's going to be a real debate, you have to fact check everybody. Like if someone says maybe she thought there was no, which is also wrong. So it's one of two things. It's either it was not true, it was a lie on purpose, which is terrible, or it was the opposite, it was ignorance, which is also terrible.
What are y'all doing?
Joe, when I said crime is soaring, he said, no, crime has gone down. I said, where did you hear that one? Crime has gone down. I mean, I'm debating with this guy, but I've had that.
Well, there was amended FBI statistics that came out after that showed that crime...
Grab the flags, dog. What are y'all doing?
Statistics were a fraud, because when they put out the statistics, they didn't include some of the worst places. They didn't include some of the worst cities, some of the most deadly places. When the real numbers came out, I turned out to be right, but I haven't...
You turned out to be right, but then there's another problem. Unreported crime is way up. Because people have lost. Look, the morale that the police department has in a lot of these cities where they've done this defund the police bullshit, the morale of these poor cops, it's fucking horrible. It's the dumbest idea of all time. But what they've done is they've made these cops feel terrible. They're like good cops. I think cops are just like everybody else. Most of them are great. It's like everybody else. But if you run into one carpenter and he does a shitty job in your house, you say carpenters fucking suck. But they don't suck. Most of them are great.
I couldn't turn. There's all this fucking shit in front of the way.
They did all of these things in this very foolish way, and these cops are suffering the consequences of it. And so subsequently, what happens is a lot of crime is unreported. A lot of crime, like all the cops, they're too busy. They can't even get to where your house got broken into. Sorry, you know, it doesn't even make a report. There's a lot of people that they just give up.
It's so sad what's happened, and I'll tell you what. I go to police funerals, and we went to one in Long Island. I visited the family in Long Island. A very big deal. Sunday, people don't realize the car, dark windows, pull over. He's a gentleman. Please pull over.
They trapped at sea.
This guy comes out firing. Even if they were allowed to pull out the gun, which they're not, they can't, pull
do
out
it in time. Yeah.
They still wouldn't have time.
It's every cop's worst nightmare.
They opened the door. And he was killed, and his partner was hurt. He was killed. And you don't even have an eighth of a second to think. And it is such a dangerous job. That in particular, think of it, you go up to a gun, you don't know who's sitting there with a gun, and if they have a gun, you really don't have a chance. You're not allowed to have your gun out, by the way. They have very strict rules. So, number one, but even if you could have your gun out, the door opens and a guy and bullets.
I was busting their ass that game. Oh my god.
Especially when they have the dark.
They couldn't do that
windows,
with me.
the darkened windows.
40 kills. Oh my god.
Profession. And it's very hard to get cops now because they're not given any backup. And you're right. They have like an eighth of a second to make a decision that's going to change their life. If they make the wrong decision, they're going to end up with a front and they're going to lose their house and their pension and their job and their wife is going to be gone and everything's going to be gone.
And here's another thing that people don't talk about. How many of them have PTSD? Probably most of them. These guys are seeing people shot all the time.
Yep.
You know, I've talked to a ton of cops about it, and
Fuck y'all talking about?
commit suicide. A lot of cops are deeply depressed. A lot of
We have
cops
to give them
their
dignity. We can't. You said it so good. You never hear anybody say that. You're never going to have it perfect. You're going to have a bad apple
in every.
I just get a
every
century
profession.
gun.
But every time there's a bad apple, that gets massive publicity, and it taints everybody else.
But it's also this very irresponsible thing where people say defund the police, get rid of the police. You know, even Kamala Harris was a part of that. It's a very stupid way to look at it. What you should do is fund the police. You should have better training. You should have cops that feel more appreciated. You should have something that helps mitigate this PTSD that all of them suffer through.
She was a big part of defund the police. That was a big thing for her, defund the police, always defund the police.
Well, it's a political idea,
but
right?
Anybody with that political thought, I don't think should be running for president, and I think people are getting wise to it. You know, we're doing pretty well now. I don't know, maybe in a week from now, say, sorry about that, I was wrong, but we're leading everything. And I think we're going to have a very good election. But I tell people, because people are starting to get to know her. But she was defund the police. She was all these transgender operations. You know, if you wanted a sex change and you were in detention and you demanded a sex change, they would give you a sex change.
Well, the wildest one is this idea of giving free sex change to illegal immigrants.
That's right. in detention.
That is the wildest
But
thing. Like, is that the biggest problem you have?
Yeah.
You just walked here from Guatemala. You need to become a girl.
But
Right.
she was in favor of it.
Yes.
So think of it. She was now she changed. She changed 15 policies. In fact, I'm going to send her a MAGA cap.
She stole your idea about no tax for tips.
I came up with this idea that honestly nobody ever heard of. And now it took her 2 months, but you know what? All of a sudden,
It caught fire.
I didn't play this map yet.
into a little speech.
Yeah.
What is this?
It became
But
popular.
I think we still have that issue. I think that issue is a good one for it. But then we have a lot of good issues. You know, we had the other day. Think of how simple some of these things are. We're trying to get cars built in the United States. Detroit has been really.
I wonder where they at.
They have a huge factory, a huge car auto plant being built by China in Mexico. Make cars, sell them in the United States, put everybody out of business. Right here we
See the guy.
I said that plant is there when I'm president.
see you.
I will put 100 or 200% tariffs on every car. They'll be unsaleable in the United States. And they
Oh my God, you right next to him, dog.
I think I'm going to think of it. They're not going to build a plant. This was the biggest plant in the world. It would have been more than all of Michigan makes. So that's how big. You know, this is what we're getting to. And I said, if that plan goes up, I want them to understand if I win, I'm going to tax those cars at the rate of 100 or 200% apiece, so that you won't be able to sell them in the United
You're a bitch.
States. They just announced they're not going to build a plant.
Yeah, I read this.
I did a big favor
Straight hoe cake
our
ass
country
niggas.
by doing that, and I'm not even there yet. To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than anything.
Ran out of bullets, man.
This country can
They up on
become
the purchase.
rich
They perched up.
with the proper use of tariffs. It'll
Did
keep
you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Are we serious about that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Because our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs, factories.
What are y'all doing?
Workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. And the
They
big
thought they was
price
sweet up there. They thought they was sweet up there.
like that, but he
Up
was
on a little perch.
and then around in the early 1900s.
This is one of the bigger maps, though, I think. I haven't played this yet.
And you know why? Because countries don't pay a lot of taxes.
Come on, man.
Please don't you? You know,
You third partying,
they
dog.
control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now, but we had a commission meeting in the I think it was 1887. Think of
Oh
this.
my God, there's so many.
We were so rich, we had so much money, we didn't know what to do, so they set up a blue ribbon commission.
Oh my God.
And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China does it. That's what China did. If you want to open a factory, so if you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They don't take our cars. But if you build
Oh my God.
a plant in China,
Every time I'm about to reload, some fucking somebody comes around the corner.
Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of Elon. He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy.
Why are you up there hiding, dog? What are you doing?
I told the story once or twice. So you may have heard
What was that?
Speeches have been good. Did you see the one last
I'm like, how
night?
do I fucking die so quick? What was that? Shotgun
And the one
sniper?
the night before was the same thing. We are rocking and rolling. But Elon, I'm talking to this very important guy. I'm looking at something. The television's unmuted, right? And I see this rocket. It's all brown from the heat. You know, it comes off 10,000 degrees pouring down at thousands of miles an hour.
Bruh.
And I see this thing, you know, it's like a 20-story
What gun is that? That shoots you in one bullet.
Wait a minute.
That kills you in fucking one
Let
bullet.
me just put you down. Hold. I gotta see this. And I see this, and it's gonna crash. I said it's gonna crash into the gantry. They call it a gantry. I said, oh man, that's gonna be a disaster because it's starting to get very close. And then all of a sudden you see the flames at the bottom. And it boom, and then you see the two arms grab it.
Crazy.
And I forgot the guy. I had him on the phone. I forgot. No, I said, to the hell with it. No, I called Elon. I said, was that you? He said, that was me. And I said, who else can do that? He said, nobody. Russia can't do it. The United States. Nobody can do it. You know, I set up Space Force. That was me. And that's the first time in 82 years that we opened another branch since the Air Force. And that's going to be one of our most important things. But think of what Elon does. And he did one other thing that I never heard of.
Bro.
Starlink. I went down to North Carolina, Georgia, the different places. Right there, I followed it right down. And they had no communication. The poles were all down. And one of the guys in North Carolina said, could you do me a favor? Do you know Elon Musk is? By the way, he gave me the nicest endorsement to this. He said the country's going to fail. You should do the same thing, Joe. Because you cannot be voting for Kamala. You're not a Kamala person. I know.
Bro, it was two teammates off
I
there.
know him better than he is.
How the fuck do you slip past that?
Speaking to you, I think I know you
shit.
maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched you for so many years. You're not a Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. Nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
they know.
He was not bad, right?
Oh, he was phenomenal.
But that's your kind of
Your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with this weave.
But isn't
I want to bring it back to
Yo,
terror.
yo.
Wait, one second before we finish.
Y'all watching Trump?
So they said,
Talking shit.
could you get him? We need Starlink. And I called Elon. He got it for him so fast, saved so many lives. And I said, how was it? They said, better than the wires. You know, they couldn't put it in. They were all gone.
This nigga blending in with a fucking
a
white suit on.
It's phenomenal. It's the size of an iPad. You just set it down on the ground. You get high-speed internet. It's incredible.
We're spending, just to show you, we're spending $1 trillion to get cables all over the country, right? Up to upstate areas. We have 2 farms and they're spending millions of dollars to have
We'll
a
talk about the
Elon can do it for
$42
nothing.
billion that was wasted on this internet access
No,
program.
cuz.
They didn't get anybody.
They haven't hooked up one person.
Not
yet.
one person. They spent $42 billion. They could have gotten Starlinks to everybody with that kind of money.
Nothing.
Yeah.
For a monthly charge.
That's what that connects to.
And it's
And he
high-speed
wanted to-
internet.
First time
everywhere
playing
you
this
wanna
map,
go.
so.
And he wanted to do that. And he wanted to do it. How about this? They built the charger stations, right? In the Midwest. They built 8 of them. They cost $9 billion. That's like a gas pump, right? They built 9 gas pumps, except electricity comes out. They spent $9 billion.
Wow.
3 of them don't work. The whole thing. There's so much waste. I could sit here and tell you about things that there's so much waste, abuse, and fraud.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think everybody's aware of that. When you're talking about, one of the criticisms of your administration was with tax cuts and with tariffs, you increased the deficit. So, what was the strategy behind that? Did you think it was going to increase the deficit by a substantial amount?
Okay, we were ready to rock. It was all, I had a bad system. We had a horrible tax policy. I made it great. With a much lower tax rate. So I took it from almost 40% down to 21%. Now I'm bringing it from 21 down to 15, but only if you make your product.
Until I get the flow of
in
this
the
fucking map.
United States, which is great. People call it this. What a great idea. Nobody ever heard of that before. Why they make the product in Japan? Why should I give them? So it's at 21. That at 21, in the first year, we took in much more revenue than we did at almost.
I knew it.
Think of that. It inspired. Now we had other things too.
Busting their ass off.
Get people to bring
First
back
place
their money.
again.
You couldn't bring back your money if you had money in Europe, like Apple. Apple had many billions of dollars outside. They couldn't bring it. There was no way to bring it back. The bureaucracy, the documents, all things, and also the tax was too high. They wanted like half of it or something. Nobody's going to do that. So they put money in Japan, and then they spend their money.
Okay.
That was a lot of money. The money came pouring back in. Apple took in hundreds of billions of dollars. They brought it back from overseas. They brought it in.
So how does the deficit increase because of that?
So what happened is this. We were ready to rock and roll, and then we had the COVID thing, and we had to focus on that. And if we didn't give some businesses a hand, they would have all had a depression like in 1929. But we were ready to start. We would have very shortly been paying off debt. We have $35 trillion in debt.
New pistol.
And I'll never forget it. it was talking about from, the standpoint of being in office. I'm in the Oval Office, and I have John McLaughlin and Fabrizio. They're two very good pollsters, probably, I don't know, I would say the two best, who knows, but very good pollsters. And we're starting to think about running for a second term. And we had the greatest economy in history. Never has there been an economy like.
And you attribute that to lowering taxes,
a lot
and
of
tariffs.
Two things, and also I cut regulations more than anybody else. And if I asked many of the businessmen, from the big companies, the guys running the big companies, I'd say, so if you had your choice, you've had it now for a long time, what's more important to you, the tax cuts, you paid less tax, or the regulation cuts? Every one of them said the regulation cuts meant more. Who would think that, right? Because you don't equate it to dollars, but it actually is more dollars. We had it going, and then we just had to focus on something else. But they were sitting there, these two pollsters were sitting there, and they said, sir, if George Washington came back and Abraham Lincoln was his VP, as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if Abraham Lincoln was his VP, they couldn't beat
This nigga's spitting right now.
And I'll never forget it. The following day, they said, something's happening in China, sir. Could we meet? I said, what's happening? People are dying. And it was all around the Wuhan lab, by the way. There are pictures with little lines, their body bags, all around the Wuhan lab. But I always said that from the beginning, Joe. Was, they tried to say, first they said it was France, and they blamed everybody.
Right.
But then they said it was bats from a cave 2,000 miles away. So we got into that, and despite that, we had the best economy. And when I gave it over, the stock market was higher than it was pre-COVID. I mean, nobody can believe it. But we saved it, and we were helping businesses. They were dying.
So it's your belief that if you had a second term, given the policies in place, the way the economy was moving, that you would have been able to pay off a lot of the debt. And that was the strategy.
Bruh.
We would have been paying off debt.
It takes so fucking long to reload, dog. Every time.
By growth. The word growth is actually more important in a way, because you could have the same debt, but if you doubled your growth, all of a sudden you're under-levered. But still, we should pay off debt. There's $35 trillion right now. It's a lot. But if you look at the asset value, if you look at it purely as an asset value, we have oil underground, we have water, we have mountains, the assets are so enormous. But regardless of that, we've got $35 trillion in debt, we should pay it off. And we would have started paying off debt and probably even giving further tax reductions. I want to get it down to 15%. We're going to do more business. But when you get hit with COVID, everything stops, and you have to keep these businesses alive. The businesses were dying. They were just dying. This whole place, this country was going to die.
Are there influences outside of environmental that keep people from wanting to drill oil and frack and do those sort of things outside of the environmental concerns, which are legitimate, of course? But are there other influences that maybe over-accentuate or over-exaggerate these environmental effects? Are people being influenced in a way where they're trying to keep us from producing American oil? Yeah.
So the environmental is the biggest tool for stopping growth, the biggest tool. The other is regulation. And if you speak to Elon, he said the regulation now to send a rocket up to anywhere, even if you do everything, it's becoming impossible. But they use environmental in order to get people not to do anything. And sometimes I say,
got all the way around.
I look at some of I know the environmental stuff because I had to build buildings in New York. I had to do environmental impact studies. And I would see some of these guys that are trying to make a lot of money, environmentalists that would get you through the process. And then be up in Albany, that's the capital, up there, trying to make it tougher for guys like me that were builders. Because they get paid more money. In other words, I had one guy, highly recommended, I was good at getting permits. I was one of the kings of, I was always very good. But the environmental stuff was always horrible. They could slow a project down 10 years, 15 years. I had a project in Louisiana, built a big LNG plant. It was for 14 years. It cost $18 billion. One of the biggest down on side times 4. Massive.
Couldn't reload, man. It's like, fuck. I can't get a fucking streak going because I can't reload fast enough.
They had environmental permits fill this whole room up to the ceiling. And they said there was one mistake on one little line. They wanted to do it all over again. It's not going to happen. And I got them their permit instantly. Built the plant. It's massive.
So when you're saying that, so there's people that are making money but making it visible.
Yeah.
Are you talking about lawyers?
No,
They're
well,
tracking
I'm
out
talking
environmental process.
And lawyers, yeah.
Environmental consultants profit from dragging out the process.
Absolutely.
And how do they profit? How do they profit?
And I'd probably do the same thing if I were them, to be honest with you.
As
You know, I want to be honest with you.
How do they do that? How do they make it?
They
How
go,
do they?
let's say New York, they go along with it, and they convince people that if you have a certain type of plant on the ground that's this big and in theory valueless, that it's a rare plant, and you cannot ever even touch it. You can't go near it. You can't put a building on it. You can't do anything. Or there's a little puddle, and they call it a lake, and you have to go by the standards of the lake.
Bruh, the whole team,
Yeah, guys are filling a little.
all dressed alike, all in the same spot.
They do.
And so,
And they use it as a way to stop.
also as a way to generate money. I'm curious how they generating money that way though.
Well, they get fees,
They get fees.
massive fees, and they pay these guys.
People rely on them as experts because they're the people that they go to when they have to do this studies in the first
But
place.
some of them are just bad guys, and they're trying to make it more and more difficult.
And they have a lot of power.
Yeah, I think they maybe had more. They didn't have as much with me because I would. I understood it. Look, I've done so many they call it environmental impact stuff. I did so much to build a building.
I hate
to build
this
a
map,
building
though.
in New York is very tough. You gotta be literacy. You gotta deal with. Think of it. Financing.
Like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
All the municipal stuff, environmental. Of all of it, to me, the toughest thing was the environmental. Because they could stop you cold with the environmental impact study stuff. And you hire a so-called expert, and they say, sir, he's the one guy who can get you through the morass. It's a morass. It's horrible. They use it as a weapon. They use it all over the country.
Right, but there are legitimate concerns about environmental impact, correct? Like, look about the BP oil spill. There's a lot of things that do happen that are environmentally devastating. And you want to mitigate that as much as possible.
You do. I had, during our cleanest, we had the cleanest air, the cleanest water. I view it differently. I say air and water. Remember this. It costs much more to do things environmentally clean. China doesn't do anything.
Right.
When Kerry goes to see President Xi in China, which he probably doesn't even get to see him, but they look at, yes, we're going to do that. No more coal, just, and then they approve 58 coal plants next year. They build
Right in
a
the
coal plant
spawn.
a week. Okay, we are cleaning and scrubbing everything, and everything's got to, the air's got to be pure. But in 3.8 days, that stuff floating over China, floating over the top of us.
Right.
Same thing with the oceans. They dump
Bruh,
their
y'all some
garbage
shit.
into the Pacific Ocean. If you take a little cork and put it there, in about a week and a half, it'll be in front of Los Angeles. We're picking up their garbage. So nobody ever talks about that. But in a way, the bigger one is even the air. It's an amazing thing. It's been flowing that way for 1 million years, or long before.
We
long
share
before-
air with the world.
No.
All toe shot.
We get the Sahara dust clouds over here.
Absolutely.
We get dust clouds in Austin from the Sahara.
We get
Bruh.
China, you know, they
Like,
call
I
it
know
China
he's right
curse.
there, and the fucking
We
still
get the
can't.
China curse. They're bad, and their air is dirty. You know, when I went there, I had a great relationship with President Xi. And they treated me better than anybody.
Put me all the way in the back of the map.
Same thing with Saudi Arabia, a number of them. But they laid it out. And I said, this air is good. Do you know they closed every factory 1 week before I got there from within 200 miles?
That's like what Gavin Newsom did when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco. He cleaned it up. He got rid of all
Isn't
the
it
homeless
terrible
people.
in a way? You know, he cleaned it up and then it became a pigsty.
Well, the dumbest thing is he said when your friends come by, when you have visitors, you clean up your house. Like, how about just keep your fucking house clean?
Can you imagine?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody say ever as a governor as to excuse to why you finally cleaned up your homeless problem.
And the day he left,
right back to it.
Went right back.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was a bad thing that he did because he should.
Shouldn't be done.
What a disgrace that was. What a disgrace.
Well, this is the thing that like shows you how foolish a lot of these people that are running these cities think. And a lot of these people that are running these states think. It's foolish. Like you're insulting the intelligence of the people that live in that city that are impacted by these people just camping and needles and human feces. There's an app that you can buy. There's an app that you can get, rather, that will show you where the human feces has been documented in San Francisco. It's a poo app. And it's just everywhere. It's just bum crap everywhere.
But let me give you one that you may not know.
Okay.
Which I think you know everything, actually. It's a student.
Boom. Nothing.
But water. You know, Los Angeles, you can't get proper amounts of water.
Right.
And it's unbelievably expensive. And you might have a house in Beverly Hills, and they're actually thinking about rationing water. Can you believe it?
I can believe it.
I was in the far part of the country with some of the congressmen driving up Iowa, and I say, how come all this land is so barren? It's farmland, and it looked terrible. It's brown and bad. I said, but there's always that little corner that's so green and beautiful. She said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why do you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north. Water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect the tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. You got to see this. We're driving up, and I had never seen it before. It's like Iowa. It's the most fertile land. Iowa's blessed with great land. Idaho for a potato, right?
Yeah.
But they're just, by the way, you know, some land is good for a potato, some land is good for corn. It's the craziest thing. I love the farmers. They're great. And by the way, they're getting killed right now.
They are.
They're getting killed because of this stupid administration. But so I see this, and I said, you gotta be kidding.
C4.
I said,
Double time.
you mean you have water? And I looked at it.
Cryo
It's like a
freeze.
valve
Ammo
in your
mod.
sink, except it's massive. The thing's 5 times taller than your ceiling.
Did you know the center of California was a giant lake?
They have so much water.
You ever see what it looks like before they rerouted
I
it?
saw that.
The center of California, like, what was it, 200 years ago? How long ago did they do that, Jamie? The center of California had a fucking enormous lake in the middle of
So
California.
they dumped it into the Pacific.
Who knows what they did? But whatever foolishness that they did led to the situation that they're in now.
Think of those dry forests that burned down all over. You know, the head of Austria said,
There is Tulare Lake, or Tachi Lake. It's a freshwater lake in the southern San Joaquin Valley, United States. Historically, Tulare Lake was one of the largest freshwater lakes west of the Mississippi. Show a photo of what it looked like back then.
that's a great
So
system.
that's what it looked like. Look at that image. Now go to the one on the third from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an enormous lake in the middle of California. Imagine that.
That'd be much more valuable
How
property.
crazy is that?
Oh,
Like, how
wow.
crazy is
So
that's
what
what it
did
used to
they
look
do?
like? And human beings screwed that
No,
up.
they let it go into the Pacific, and then they...
I don't know what they did. What did they do that, how did it go
Wow.
missing?
Yeah, they drained it.
1983. Oh my God. Oh, wait, dry a handful of times. Well, you know, lakes do go dry, but that's a big one.
But think of
It's a
it,
big one to go
you
dry.
could have all of the water you need. All of that land would have more water. The whole thing could be like that little patch. And
Yeah.
literally, I'd say I was with Devin Noon as a congressman and other congressmen were growing up. I was visiting them because they asked me to go up and visit their territory, and I did. But I kept saying, look at this land, it's beautiful, but
I don't know if I
it's
played this
so
map either.
dry. And I thought they were
Oh, yeah,
like
wait.
a desert, like a drought. They said, don't we
I think I
have water?
have.
It gets rid. So I looked into it.
What is the
And I
fish?
got it done. I could have all of that land, water for your forests. You know, your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay? That water could be routed. You know, you could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous. Billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And you know, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed allowed to touch it. When a tree falls down, after 18 months it becomes very dry. It's like, like real firewood is bad. A tree that's...
Oh, we're playing Control?
These are all things I
I didn't know where we was going.
the hard way, the easy way. But when a tree is up, it sucks water, it's wet. I went to they had a couple of horrible forest fires in California. And I said, you get a lot of trees standing. Yes, they were healthy trees, sir. I said, with this intense heat, that you could see they were charred a little bit on the bottom, but they're really all right, because they're soaking wet, because they suck up the water, right? But when they fall, they're like, it's like lighting a match.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to clean, they call it maintaining the forest. So it's with the head of Austria.
I ran out of bullets.
He said, all those forest fires.
I ran out of bullets.
And
How
all
is
they
that
have to
possible?
do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid leaves that are sitting there for 5 years, and they're
Certainly get rid of the dead fall.
Get rid of the trees that have fallen and that so many things. By the way,
could you really rake the whole forest, though? I don't think you could rake the whole forest. I think you can get rid of the dead fallen, but raking all
you
the
could
leaves.
Certainly get rid of the dead, okay?
Yeah, I think that's the real issue.
Environmentally, they don't want to do that. They said, it's got to be nature and all this stuff. But in the meantime, this is exactly But you could have, it was the Department of Commerce that needed the approvals, but Gavin Newsom had to sign it. I got it all done. Nobody could believe it. It was all done. I said, I got it. You got so much water. All you have to do is sign. And that guy didn't want to sign.
Did he not want to sign because that would be a political victory for you?
No, he didn't. No, I don't think so. He used to say he's a great
Up
president.
top.
And we got along. We did. We actually got along at that point. But I think somebody said, you just can't
Fuck!
president. They do say that. But we had it all done. He didn't sign, and then we got on to other things. And every time I go to California, you have so much water. They don't know it.
This nigga got a fucking RCO
They turn off the water. Same thing with the electric. They want to go to all electric cars, but they have brownouts every weekend,
Well, right after they made the announcement that as of 2035,
that wasn't smart standing by the explosion.
Buy an internal combustion engine in California. Like within a month, they had some announcement asking people to not charge their Teslas.
Standing by a fucking barrel on fire, but okay.
The grid couldn't handle it. Well, how are you
I will terminate the mandate. I would say in my first day, maybe 2 days, because,
Let me ask you about nuclear. One of the things that when I've talked to people that have a real understanding
Oh my God.
their position is it's probably the cleanest, safest form of electricity that we can generate. And that the fears of nuclear power are really about a few disasters. The Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, these are old systems, and they're much more capable now, and they're capable of making even better systems. But it's a difficult political issue because you think nuclear power, you think Chernobyl, everybody knows they have this connection. There has the potential of disaster. Fukushima,
where you're not supposed to enter the land for 3,000 years.
I think it's worse than that. I think that area is going to be radioactive for probably longer than you can imagine. But the point is they're better at it now. And that they can do it now, and you can generate power in a way that you don't have to worry about these. One of the most ridiculous things is electric cars being powered by coal-fired plants. It's a ridiculous thing.
So what's happening?
How are we losing 8x fucking quick?
And people want to think they're being green.
If you look at the way the batteries are made, but here's the other thing. We don't have, we do actually. It's being held. We have certain areas where we have great raw earth material.
Bro.
And we're not allowed to use it because of the environment.
I get all the shitty niggas on my
areas
phone.
in California that have incredible raw earth, and they're not allowing. And I'm going to open it up. I'm going to let them use it.
But how do you do that?
China.
How do you do that and protect the environment?
Because the environment's going to be protected. You can do it. You can make a lake out of it. Okay, we'll put back a lake. I mean, something nice about lakes. You can do things magnificently.
You just have to do it carefully, responsibly.
Absolutely, you have to do it carefully. But the problem, China has all of those areas, most of those areas. And yet, when they say go electric with the cars, China's going to be the one that gives us the cars. All of those guys in Detroit are going to be out of business. You're going to make your electric cars over there. We have a thing called gasoline, and we have more oil and gas under our feet than any other nation. I had, in Alaska, there's a find. It's called N1.
Fuck me.
They couldn't get it. Nobody could get it. I got it all. It was amazing. They were getting ready to start drilling the equivalent, they think, of Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest finds in the world. It was all set to go. And Biden comes in, one of his first orders were, we're not going to use it. It would have been so good for we could have supplied all of Asia with oil and gas.
What was the negative?
And you talk about money.
Right.
The negative was politically they didn't think it was good for them. That's all.
That's all it was. So you don't think that it's environmentally dangerous?
Taking it from way down deep in the earth, environmentally would have been fine.
So it can be done responsibly.
Absolutely. Oh, otherwise,
let's protect the environment.
Well, I think windmills. Okay, so they talk about windmills. I think windmills are really disruptive. When you talk about the environment, they kill the birds. You want to see a bird cemetery? Go under a windmill someday that hasn't been cleaned out with all the bird carcasses. It's like massive amounts of
they're
birds.
also a massive eyesore. I went to a ranch in South Texas. We had to drive past this enormous windmill farm. It's gross. It's dystopian. You're looking in the left and the right, and all you see is these big spinning machines that aren't even that effective at generating electricity.
Correct. Most expensive form of electricity is a windmill, and then they start to rust and rot.
And you have to
then they get abandoned by the people that built them.
Well, you have to get rid of all that material too.
I want it on me. They banned me already.
You have a problem.
We're talking shit.
You have to dispose. Right, you have to dispose these enormous windmills. And how do you
they say you can't bury them. So I even question that, but I'm not going to get into it. But they say you can't bury the blades. So you have the blades, and you can't bury the blades. You can bury the blades. It's not going to matter. You can bury them. You'll find areas you can bury them. But they come up. This is what I mean. They come up with this, but. The environmentalist dream is windmills. You know what happens to them? After 5 years, they start to rot. After 10 years, you have to replace them. Did you ever look at certain parts of California where they have heavy windmills and they've been abandoned? And they're all different manufacturers and all different companies. And they all, it is the ugliest thing. It looks like a graveyard almost, a graveyard of windmills.
It's pollution.
It's so bad.
It's no different than leaving garbage on the ground.
How about in New Jersey, off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build. The people are going crazy not to build them, but we have them. The whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So, in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they have like 18 come in the last year.
What is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. You know, it's a vibration because you have those things are 50-story buildings somewhere.
Right, and they're super sensitive to vibrations.
They have those things. You know, the wind is rushing, the things are blowing. It's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy. Yeah. Something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore, and you know, and yet the environmentalists
conveniently ignored by the
environmentalists. But the environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
Right.
I think there's nothing out there. I see it in Scotland. I see it all over the world. You have this beautiful.
I didn't even know I was the nigga.
You know,
what the fuck?
In civilization, thousands of years, but millions of years, and all of a sudden you have these ugly windmills up.
Would your plan to be replace that with nuclear? What would you do?
Well, nuclear is better. I think there's a real danger in nuclear. But, you know, we had some really bad nuclear. They did one in Alabama. They did one in, I think, South Carolina. They do them wrong. They build these massive things. Then the environmentalists get it. I don't want to go into a long story because it's too long for the show. This show is too valuable to talk about concrete. But they have hardened concrete. It's number 12 concrete. It's harder than steel. It's incredible. They put up a wall and an inspector comes along and goes, no.
It's upstairs? Is the upstairs there?
The wall might be 8 feet wide. And you're a quarter of an inch.
Is the upstairs in that fucking building?
Because it's got to be poured contiguously, right? You're 1/4 of an inch. I'm sorry, ripped down. You can't rip it down. This stuff you can't put a hammer through it. You can't. It's incredible. Concrete technology is unbelievable. What's happened? You think of concrete.
So you think that's an example of overregulation?
Yeah,
pointless overregulation.
You have an inspector that comes along and he says, take down a $25 zillion wall. These things ended up costing $25 billion. And one of them never got opened. But here's the story. So France does it. France is largely nuclear. And they build small, little, compact plants. And if they need more, they build the same thing and they hook it up. And they hook it up because they get too big and too complex and too expensive. And it is very clean. They say it's absolutely, my uncle, I had a great uncle who was a great genius, just like other members of my family. But he was a professor at MIT for, I think, 14 years. He was the longest. When I was in the White
This
House,
nigga standing on the top of the steps.
MIT, Princeton, and Harvard came down to meet me. And the MIT person said, I have a book when your uncle, Dr. John Trump, he was our longest serving professor. He was a great genius, and he had nuclear, from math to chemistry to nuclear, he knew it. And he said, someday it's going to be the way to go, but the problem is it's so dangerous in terms of war. He said, Donald, someday, this was a long time, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump, he said, someday you'll have a little satchel at your side, and you'll go into a building and you'll be able to blow up New York City. I said, Uncle John, that'll never happen. He's right. You know, he's right.
Well, that was
the
power
so
with giving nuclear power to other countries, right? Like, that was the problem that happened with India and Pakistan. They got nuclear power, and then they were able to weaponize it.
The biggest problem in the world today is not...
Bruh, he's sitting at the top of the steps.
And we have idiots that are negotiating for us. We have a guy that doesn't make it past 4 o'clock, and it's not because of age. I know so many guys that they're late 80s and they're better than you. I said to one guy the other day, I think you're smarter than you were 25 years ago. I've known him a long time. He's 89 years old. He's sharp. He's great. Biden gives people a bad name because that's not an age. I think they say it because I'm 3 or 4 years younger. You know, I think that's why they say it. They say his age. It's not his age.
He's had
a problem.
2 major brain surgeries.
Yeah. He did. Those are not good operations.
And you see what he did today? He went right towards the camera and made some apology to Native Americans, and he said that's why he's headed out west. Like, he's off the reservation, so to speak, for lack of a better term.
You know, it's interesting because during the debate, I was looking over. I'm saying, this is strange. This is sort of like strange things were happening.
Yeah.
This is strange.
Well, he couldn't keep it together, but do you think they knew he couldn't keep it together? Do you think that they wanted that? Is that why, like, historically, the debate was earlier than they've been in the past, right?
I think they wanted to get, well, there's a lot of theories. A lot of people said, do the debate now and we'll get him out.
Right.
I think that maybe could be.
Well, that is what happened.
What the fuck? One of the guys?
I think they also said, do the debate now and get it over with. I don't think anybody thought he was going to get out, really.
That didn't make any sense.
The debate got him out, but I think it's very unfair. Look, you have a bad debate. His numbers went down. But I think she's not doing very well right now, and I think she looks good.
Well, I get to that too, because it's hard to know. Like, the whole poll thing is very bizarre for most people, because most people don't answer polls. So they read the polls, and they're like, let's get a poll. I never
I was never called by a poll.
If I did, I wouldn't answer. I'm busy.
You know how polls are done. I know I'm going to get myself in trouble, but so I really don't believe too much in it. So,
well, 2016 taught a lot of people about the ineffective.
Well, they were very ineffective because I thought I was doing well. I'd go to a place and I'd have 30, 40,000 people. Hillary would go, they have 500 people, and they tell me I'm going to lose. I said, why am I going to lose? I had 40,000 people. She had 200 people. But, you know, I have a theory. These pollsters, they charge you a lot of money, too. You know, they charge you $500,000 to do some stupid poll, and they interview like 251 people. I don't think they interview in many cases. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
You think it's bullshit?
I think they sit there, they make a deal, they get $500,000, and they say, Trump's leading 51 to 49. They announce it, and everybody says, oh. Do you understand? I don't think they. I think in a lot. Look, I'm a very common sense person. I think that they probably don't always poll. Some of them probably
Wow,
never
what a guy.
What's the difference?
What a guy. With your horoscoping bitch ass.
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of the population. I don't think it's representative of the overall population. I just don't think
I don't
it
know
is.
of one person in my whole life that ever got called by a pollster.
Exactly. That's my point. So, here's my question.
But I shouldn't say that because the girls are doing really well in the polls.
But I think that's...
So this week I happen to believe them. I only believe them if they're good. No, I like them this month. But no, I honestly believe that there's probably a lot of fraud. I had a poll, Washington Post, ABC, and the Hillary thing on Wisconsin. They had me down 17 points the day. I knew it was wrong because I had a rally. I had 29,000 people at a racetrack, and it was like a zero. It was Wisconsin. And they had me down 17 points. In other words, you had no chance. And I called up Mike Post, who's a good guy, good guy. And I believe he's legitimate. You know, and some of them are, some of them aren't. I said, tell me, why did they...
I'm about to open them fucking gates up.
I mean, nobody's going to believe them the next time. They said they don't care. When you're down 17 points, people are going to say, they're not going to vote. Right. Because they're going to say, I love Trump, but I'm not going to waste my time. It's cold out. I said, well, what do they make at 4 or 5? He said, at 4 or 5, they're going to go and vote. At 17, they're not going to go and vote. So think of it, I was 7, this is the Washington Post, ABC. I was down 17 points in Wisconsin. It's crooked stuff.
There's a lot of crooked stuff, and I wanted to talk about that too, because one of the things that people talk about with you is the denial of the results. I think J.D. Vance did a brilliant job the other day when he was being interviewed, and they asked him, did Trump lose the 2020 election? And he turned it around and said, was there legitimate election interference in suppressing the Hunter story on social media? And was that a concerted effort?
Well, they said a 10-point difference, and I lost by one. They say it was 22,000.
Fucking snipers, dog.
But look, it was much more than that, and I appreciate J.D. Vance saying that. And by the way, I think he was a great pick. Do you like J.D. as a
I like him a lot. Yeah.
You're allowed to say that.
No, I do. I like him a lot. I think he's a brilliant guy, and I think his ability to talk like a normal human being. You did my friend Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he just did it.
How did he do it?
He did great. He just talks like a normal human being. No. I was, once they shot you, I was like, you've got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing. I think we're in time for it. You didn't have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
What was that?
So, it zigged right there.
It's pretty fucking good, man.
It's pretty good, yeah. It's not like some of the wrestlers, some of the UFC fighters.
No, you didn't get cauliflower.
No. It was sort of like a top shot. Mm-hmm. The point of the bullet was over the ass, but you see the thing's taken off a little bit. But it makes me a tough. The fighters love their. Bo Nickel is a great.
Yeah, I love Bo Nickel.
How's he going to do? I think he's doing
great.
Almost like undefeated.
He's a fantastic wrestler and one of the best mixed martial artists.
When is he fighting again?
He's fighting in Madison Square Garden in November.
Ooh, that's going to be an after the election.
Yep.
So I'll either go as president or I'll be depressed and I won't fight. Yeah, I think they're having a fight right now.
One of the things that was fascinating also was the denial of the election results is a pretty common thing. Hillary Clinton famously denied that she called you an illegitimate president, and she said that Russia put you in place.
Even though she conceded.
Yes.
She conceded the night of the election because she was beaten.
Yes, and it was a thing that was pretty common for people, especially Democrats, to deny the elections. There's been many of them. The Bush administration, the dangling chads, all that stuff.
Well, look at these guys in Congress, all these sleazebags in Congress. They're still denying 2016.
Fuck!
Because,
who fucking opened the gate up?
You don't hear them say.
But here's my point.
They denied it right up until the end.
My point is, this idea of election fraud is a forbidden topic, and you get labeled an election denier. It's like being labeled an anti-vaxxer if you question.
Why are you back there, dog? What are you?
Consequences that people have had from the COVID-19 shots. Oh my God, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you say, and what I say publicly, and I've said this a lot, it's not 0%. So if you ask me what is the amount of election fraud in this country, is it 0%? No one thinks it's 0%. I've never met one person, a super liberal, progressive, far left person, or a right-wing conservative. Not one person thinks it's 0%. They think when you have human beings, and also you have a lot of weirdness that was going on during the 2020 elections, particularly with mail-in ballots.
And you had legislatures that had to approve, and they didn't approve, and they went out and did it anyway. And you had old-fashioned ballot screwing. I mean, you had, you have people going up and dropping in phony votes. You had unsigned ballots, etc., etc.
There's certain people that think that they have, and the rhetoric is also that you're Hitler. And that in order to stop Hitler, you have to do whatever it takes.
That was okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, you're hearing this now. Kamala said your love of Hitler yesterday.
Kamala is a very low IQ person. It's a very low IQ. I'm for taking tests, too. I I think anybody that runs for president they should give them tests. And it's not an age thing. It's not based on age. You look back on history, 70s and 80s.
Oh my God.
Some of your greatest leaders
He slid under my slide.
World history. They were in their 70s and their 80s. But I think you should take cognitive tests. I think everybody, they say it's unconstitutional. But I think Kamala should have a test because there's something missing. There's something wrong with it.
Well, I think it's pressure. I think the pressure and the scrutiny, you've been a celebrity for a long time and you understand what this is like. But for someone who's in her late 40s, who becomes the vice president, who runs for president, becomes the vice president, and then all of a sudden the weight of the world's on your shoulders and there's all these people paying attention. A lot of people clam up.
But you either have to, correct. This is, we've covered a lot of territory.
With a pistol?
And, you know, it's fine. I don't care. I want to. I think it's much more interesting. To do an interview with Anderson Cooper, a crazy softball interview. She took 2 days off and she studied this. And she comes up with a result. It was a real embarrassment. That was a really bad interview. She couldn't answer a question. And every question's not answered. What would you do your first day in office? Okay, I'll build a wall. I won't build a wall. There's 100 things you can say. Just say anything, right? There's something off with her. Well, we're dealing with the smartest people. They hate when I say, you know, when I call President Xi, they say, we call President Xi brilliant. He controls 4 billion people with an iron fist. He's a brilliant guy, whether you like it or not. And they go crazy.
Right, it doesn't mean he's not evil, or it doesn't mean he's not dangerous.
But actually, we have evil people in our country. Yes. If you have a smart president, he can deal with Russia. He can deal with all.
Wow.
Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I was president.
How would you have stopped it?
Automatic 2 things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. I used to talk to him all the time. You're not going in. I can't tell you what I told him because I think it would be inappropriate. But someday he'll tell you. But he would have never gone in. But you know why else he wouldn't have gone in? Oil prices at $40 a barrel wouldn't have allowed him, wouldn't have given him the money to prosecute that war. Wouldn't have given him the money. I said it with I was with President Xi. I said it was almost the same conversation. With Vladimir, it was Moscow. With President Xi, it was Beijing. It was almost the exact same conversation. I said, don't do it. He would have never done it. The day I left, they flew 28 bombers over the middle of Taiwan. 28 bombers. And it's the apple of his eye, and the same thing with Russia. It's the apple. Ukraine is the apple of his eye. I used to talk to him. I had a very good relationship with him. He wouldn't have done it. He would have never done it. But he also wouldn't have done it because of you know, one of the reasons that what happened is, number one, he doesn't respect Biden at all. Not even a little bit. And who the hell would? But he doesn't respect him. But when he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled, number one, you take the soldiers out last, not first. Okay, that was their big mistake. And we had that thing charted out, and they weren't obeying us. They weren't. Abdul was the head of the Taliban. Boom, boom, he had to do all these things. Some he didn't do. I said, nope, you're not doing. You got to do them all. This guy he immediately took he left the equipment behind. 13 soldiers dead, but he took everybody out. He took his soldiers out before. A child would know. That's where Milley was so stupid. He was such a stupid guy, Milley. Okay, those generals should have all been fired. The people that were involved with Afghanistan should have all been fired. Then they'd be writing books about him, how stupid he was, how bad he was. But you take your soldiers out last. I had a big rally, and I saw a child in the front row about a year and a half ago, and I called the child up. I said, do you mind if I borrow your child? Yes, I did. I gave him quick details, you know. I said, we want to get out of this place. Then we have this, and we have this, and we have the equipment. I gave him do you take your soldiers out first or last after everything's done? You take them out last, sir. A child would know that. We took our soldiers out first. And we left the back room.
Well, not only that,
Well, fucking shit.
millions of dollars worth of equipment and military vehicles that they use for parades now.
The best equipment, that's the best equipment weapons in the world.
The Taliban parade where they've got tanks rolling down the streets and Blackops flying is the craziest thing I've ever seen. The fact that we left all that stuff there.
Equipment in the world behind.
What would you have done differently?
Number one, we would have taken it out. Just so you go back a little bit further. I had a couple of conversations with Abdullah. At the time I had those conversations, they were shooting us up, shooting the sniper stuff.
Are you serious?
They were shooting a lot. They were shooting a lot with Obama, much less with me, but they were shooting him. And I said, get this guy on the phone. The press went nuts when they heard this. We had a great conversation. It was a tough conversation. 18 months later, there wasn't one soldier that was ever shot at. And even Biden admitted it in a moment of stupidity because he shouldn't admit it. His people went nuts. He said, yeah, well, I will admit, no soldier...
My headphones on backwards? Like I heard nigga on the right.
Afghanistan. Not one soldier was killed because he understood what was going to happen if that happened. I didn't have one soldier. Then when I left, after having gotten more votes than any sitting president in the history of the country, and much more votes than I got in 2016, when I left, they started shooting our soldiers. But more importantly, what they did is they did that whole thing with, leaving. He shouldn't have left, number one, should have left from Bagram, because Bagram's this massive base. It's got tremendous acreage around it, tremendous. It's a very big, it was built many years ago. And part of the reason you wouldn't have taken that is because it goes to China.
I'll get my tag on.
Where China makes its nuclear missiles, he should have never left Bagram. Number one, they should have left from Bagram. They should have left last. Americans are still there.
Tracking.
They should have taken all their equipment out. Everything, every plane, every screw should have been taken out. Every tent.
Got him for me.
And I said that. That's when I realized that Millie was a dummy. I said, we're leaving, but I want to get everything out. Search cheaper or leave. I said, it was cheaper to leave. He said it's cheaper to leave. That was cheaper. Cheaper. He said it's cheaper.
Sir, more dangerous.
He just said cheaper. I said, I want every plane. I want every tank. I want the goggles. I have night goggles. I have all this stuff that these guys now have. He said, sir, it's cheaper to get out and leave it. I said, see, you think it's cheaper to leave a $150 million brand new airplane in there than it is to fly it out with a tank of jet fuel and put it in Pakistan or just fly it directly back? It's cheaper with. I said, this guy's nuts. I'm telling you, he was so stupid. He was so unwise. He was like an unwise man. But I defeated ISIS. I flew to Iraq, and I met the real generals, not these idiots that we deal with. And we got that. I defeated 100% of the ISIS cavalry. He said it would take 5 years.
The fuck?
Literally a few weeks, and we hit them hard. And he said,
shot that motherfucker with 4 rockets. It's still in. Yeah.
I said, this guy's great. I like this guy.
Really?
I told him it would take 5 years. That's why I went. I said, how could it take 5 years? We have brand new fighters. We have the best planes, the best weapons, the best guns, the best bombs. How could it possibly take that long? And I flew to left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew I was going. Got on Air Force One and we started flying. And when we reached about half an hour away from Iraq, that was where the airport was, big airport. About a half an hour away, they said, sir, I'm sorry, you have to turn off all your lights. Why? We're getting close to our site, our land. I said, we spent $8 trillion and we can't leave the lights on.
I'm lagging now. What the fuck?
20 years, $8 trillion, and we can't leave the lights on in a plane. And I said, that's okay, turn the lights on. I'm not going to fight him. That's what
this is because it's too dangerous?
Yeah, too dangerous, because they see the light up in the air. They'll shoot at it, So I said, turn the lights on. Then they said, so we also put your shades up. That's okay. I said, that's okay.
I'm lagging. Like, what the fuck? I'm skipping around.
All the lights outside, the blinking, the blinking reds, they were all turned off. And I like to sit with pilots a lot of times. And these guys, I would say, they're better looking than Tom Cruise. Okay? And they're even taller. Like perfect specimens.
Dog.
These guys, like for a fighter.
What's going on with my connection right now?
Specimens, right. And they pick the best pilots in the Air Force, United States Air Force, to fly Air Force One. And I get up there, And I'm sitting, and I'm feeling my way up. You know, I just cell 47, so you go through the stairs, but I sort of knew my way up. There wasn't a light in the plane. I'm saying, can you imagine? We spent trillions of dollars, and we're trying to fly in blind. But I got into the plane, the cockpit's dark black, little tiny light, you could see the pilot. A perfect-looking human being. His co-pilot, everybody was perfect. They were all like movie stars. You know, it's like, I could have cast a movie with these guys, and nobody would believe it because they were too good looking. So I said,
Ran out of fucking bullets.
So I look outside, there's not a light, and I'm saying, you know, I've landed a lot of planes, and you see like little lights at least. There's nothing.
I don't know why I'm lagging around right now. This shit's irritating.
And I said, okay, Captain, good, but now you've been in many planes where it has the computer sign saying 1,000 feet, goes 1,900, 800. The computer voice for sound like it's incredible.
Fuck! I need a banana clip.
Captain, are we okay? I'm looking, are we okay, Captain? And I'm looking, you know, normally when you land a plane, because I said, I think it's great. I think it's a great profession. I think it's incredible. They're incredible. These machines are incredible. He said, sir, no problem, sir. I said, you know, I don't see the lights up there, Captain. Sure, we're okay. You know? So, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. You know, probably exaggerating to tell the story. They'll say Trump was a coward. So I'm sitting with her, yes, 500 foot, and I'm telling you, there wasn't a light on the runway. Nothing. And we're going in. You okay, Captain? Everything good? Yes, sir. No problem, Captain. 1 minute, sir. And I'm telling you, Joe, you know, there's always a light.
Get them tagged, get them tagged.
And all of a sudden, and you hear, wow, perfect landing like glass. That's how they put these guys between the equipment and it's genius. It's beautiful. It was so dark.
Let's go.
You couldn't see a thing. There was no runway. You wouldn't know where in the hell you're in the middle of a desert. And then I got out of the plane. I said, thank you, Captain. This is a great job. Go down there. I see a general and another general. And I see a staff sergeant, a drill sergeant, various guys. All central casting. Central casting. He said, sir, would you like to rest? I said, I don't want to rest. I want to figure out what the hell are we doing with ISIS. I'm hearing we can't. It's going to take years. No, sir, we can do it very quickly, sir. And anyway, we go into the room. We go in. I mean, Biden would have taken a nap for 4 days and then left without a meeting. So we go into the room, and they have these guys. I say, how long can you do it? How long? We can do it in
Tantino, let's
5 years.
go.
We can do it in...
And I got the reflex sight.
Like, just
Alright.
like in no time. I said, why haven't you done it? Because the orders came in from Washington, sir, and they would come here and tell us what to do. Don't you challenge us? We're not allowed to do that, sir. That's not the military way. They tell us what to do, and we have to respect them.
So do you think that it was incompetence why they didn't go after ISIS?
I think it's a bad system. You know, when Mattis goes there or when Milley goes there, who's stupid, and they tell these guys that are actually smart what to do, and the guys that are smart are saying, we don't like what they're doing, but they're not allowed to sort of counteract. Plus, the guys that went there are arrogant. You know, they're arrogant fools. They're like stupid fools. The way they pulled out of, you know, the way they, as an example, the way they pulled out of Afghanistan with the people falling off the planes. So
yeah, it's a disgrace.
it was worse than Vietnam with the helicopters falling. It was so bad. There was no reason for it. Anyway, so we knocked them out, and I mean, we have great military. We have great people, but not the television guys. And I rebuilt the military, and then they gave a chunk of it. I have to tell you, as much as it is, it's a tiny little piece. Believe it or not, we have an unbelievable. I rebuilt the military. I rebuilt our nuclear, and in a way, I hated to redo it, but I got to realize how powerful that nuclear is, Joe. One bomb, Israel is gone, but forget. One bomb could take out the entire East Coast. It's so bad. And I watch these poor fools talking about our oceans will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 500 years. I mean, we have people, we have countries. Right now you have 5 countries. And don't underestimate if you take a look at North Korea, I was there. I mean, I was with Kim Jong. I had a great relationship. I got along great with him. You know, the president, she got along great. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. Obama thought we were going to go to war with North Korea. When I met with Obama just prior to the takeover, you know, you have a sort of a ceremonial meeting. But it lasted a long time, a lot longer than it was supposed to last. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. By the time I finished, we had no problem with North Korea. We were really, it was a little tough at the beginning, remember? Mm-hmm. He said, I have a red button on my desk. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger than yours and mine works.
I liked how you called him Little Rocket Man.
I said, yeah, Little Rocket. I said, Little Rocket Man, you're going to burn in hell. And it was a rough, so rough that people were worried. This is crazy. And then one day, I got a call, sort of like a fight. I got a call. You know, you ever see that pounding, and then all of a sudden, but I got a call, and it was from him, meaning his people. They wanted to meet. They wouldn't meet Obama. He tried to meet. They wouldn't even talk to him about it. And I think he expected to go to war. I actually do. I believe he expected to go. And we checked their nuclear stockpile. It is substantial. I mean, I said, do you do anything? I got to know him very well. I got to know him better than anybody. And I said, do you ever do anything else? Why don't you go take it easy and relax? Go to the beach. You have beautiful beach, nice beachfront property. You know, kiddingly. I said, you're always building nuclear. Just relax. You don't have to do it. Let's build some condos on your shoreline. They actually have gorgeous stuff. And he said, I just have to do it because I need it for my safety, etc. I got to know him very well. We had no problem with him. If you have a smart problem, if you have a smart, really the right president, a smart president, you're not going to have a problem. And I say it to people, we have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with the enemy from within. And it drives them crazy when I use that term. But we have an enemy from within. We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. When you look at what's happening at our border, Joe, when you have people coming in that, when other countries are allowed to empty their prisons into our country with murderers, we had 13,099 murderers dropped in our country over the last 3 years.
And 15,000 rapists convicted.
Rapists?
Yeah.
Drug dealers, drug lords.
And that's just the ones that have been accounted for.
Correct. People from mental institutions.
What do you think the strategy is?
Hundreds of thousands of major criminals, tougher and worse than anybody we have.
We're seeing the consequences of it. In San Antonio, they've taken over apartment buildings. In Aurora, Colorado, they've taken over apartment buildings. These Venezuelan gangs.
Just the beginning.
What do you think the strategy is? You know, one of the things that they've said is that you stopped a bill from being passed. But didn't that bill also include amnesty for the people that are already here?
Joe, this is years after the fact. The damage was already done.
But what was the bill?
Well, the bill was nothing. It allowed 2 million people then. They were going to get amnesty. It was a horrible bill. It didn't protect us at all.
But we should just tell people what the strategy is. So one of the things
their
strategy. One of the things that's been very clear is that they've moved a large percentage of these migrants that are coming across the border illegally. They've moved them to swing states. Like, this is what's going on with Springfield, Ohio, right?
They're in swing states. Well, that's not a swing state. I'm going to win Ohio by a lot. So that's not a swing. But it's called Springfield, Ohio, to be exact. And Springfield, Ohio is this very nice community of 52,000 people that just had 32,000 migrants that don't speak the language dropped into their community. You can't get into a hospital. You can't get into a school. It's gone from a beautiful little place to a horror show. And the mayor is a nice guy. And the mayor says, we're looking for interpreters.